All right. We are back. Collector's Cast Midseason Showdown. We are here for round 2. We have
on the microphone. On the microphone. I am Franklin Lewis. You might know me better as DKG's Avos. On the mic with me, I have the one and only Mr. Matt Jackson. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We had a very good round 1 with Ethan Simpson and John Masters, and now we're back for round 2. We have Andrew Hart, who I believe is on the screen below, and we have Sean Ring, who will be his opponent. Just looking at what we just saw with Andrew's team, it looks like he has a Gastrodon. That'll be really exciting to see in this match.
Yeah, I don't know that much about Sean. But I think that we heard briefly that he is running potentially a rain team.
And that is what we see right here.
Absolutely.
So we have Andrew's team, which is Arcanine, Gastrodon, Xurkitree, Garchomp, Mandibuzz, and Tapu Lele versus Sean's team. We have the double duck, so Golduck and Pelipper versus Tapu Lele, Metagross, Garchomp, and Smeargle. This is going to be an exciting match, and it looks like
Wait. Mr. Matt Jackson.
What's up?
That is an Arcanine.
What did I say? On that.
Oh, we're having fun today. I hope you guys are having fun as well. Arcanine, not Smeargle.
My bad.
No, we're good. So one thing that we've seen previously, we've seen this Tapu Lele and Metagross combo in a couple different teams. Notably for me, Aaron Cybertron Zhang was running Drifblim Lele with a Metagross as well, and that was a choice band Metagross if I remember correctly. And then we've seen some Metagross paired with Salamence, and Arcanine can also run Bulldoze to activate a weakness policy on Metagross. So we'll have to watch and see what's going on here. One thing to point out is that Andrew Hart is running that Tapu Lele with a Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz often runs some sort of seed to boost either defense or special defense, and then try and set up some tailwinds. But now this Lido, oh man, this puts Andrew in such a great position, because we've got Sean, who brought Pelipper Golduck, and there's not much that he can necessarily do as far as rain-boosted water moves against this Gastrodon.
For those of you unfamiliar, Gastrodon has the ability Storm Drain, which redirects any of the water attacks that your opponent dishes out, and gives you a +1 special attack boost. So Andrew with the Gastrodon on the field almost is kind of a counter to the entire Duck lead, and that gives Xurkitree kind of a safeguard this turn.
Yeah, and I mean, if Xurkitree's got Discharge, that's going to be 4 times super effective against this Pelipper. So Pelipper might be able to get a Tailwind up. We see that Golduck switches out, which is very smart. This Garchomp coming in, which would be able to survive a Discharge because it's immune to it. But Andrew, knowing that there might be a switch in here, going for that Tail Glow.
And we do see, that was a very interesting play. We do see the Tailwind, so further support the Garchomp here. And we see kind of a very, a setup-oriented turn on Andrew's side with the Substitute and the Tail Glow here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that Tail Glow, that should be fantastic, especially seeing that we've got Garchomp here. And Xurkitree does have access to Dazzling Gleam, but Xurkitree's going to go ahead and protect here. We've got Gastrodon still behind the sub. Garchomp going for that Earthquake, which Pelipper is immune to with its flying typing. Not doing a whole lot of damage to Xurkitree because of that Protect. Thank you. And then we're going to see what kind of... Well, we got this sub breaking on Gastrodon, which is to be expected. And I think it kind of comes down to what this... Oh, no! Rain-boosted Muddy Water! Oh, Andrew! What a beautiful little Gastrodon. Proving to be as annoying as Gastrodon tend to be.
Very, and that was kind of a very safe turn. because he was able to know that he was going to be able to deal at least a little bit of damage. That Gastrodon did around 30% to both of the things on Sean's side of the field. So Sean has to be wary of that going on to the further in the game. He still has the Earthquake pressure onto the Xurkitree. Whether or not that will pick up the KO, we'll be able to see. Mm-hmm. But you have to, like, Sean's kind of positioning and bringing in that Garchomp and setting up Tailwind.
Yeah, and we saw that the Pelipper did double target into the Xurkitree as well with a Hurricane. And, oh my goodness, that damage from that. Oh, wow. So what we saw in the last round is that we saw that John Masters had a Xurkitree that was very capable of taking an Earthquake from Garchomp. But this Garchomp taking the clean one-hit KO and doing enough damage with that Earthquake on Gastrodon that Hurricane from Pelipper, which Pelipper isn't really known for being an amazingly strong special attacker, cleans up the Gastrodon, which is known for being very bulky.
That turn was extremely huge for Sean, as he's able to take that entire advantage, allow for the Gastrodon to be dead, and have his Golduck come in potentially late game and exert a ton of pressure with that Hydro Vortex that all the Ducks are on.
Yeah, and we saw that Andrew Hart was in a pretty good position. We had some pretty good confidence going into him in that turn, and then the entire game went from being advantage Andrew with that great lead out, where he was able to set up some great special attack boost with the Tail Glow, set up the substitute on Gastrodon, got no Muddy Water accuracy drops, and then Sean with that extremely powerful Garchomp, just able to take out any advantage that Andrew was trying to set up.
Absolutely, and just being able to pick up that KO, preventing the Gastrodon from moving and picking up the KO with that Hurricane was extremely important. Allowing Andrew to just freely just do any water type attacks he wants, and picking up the KO on the top of Lele here puts the matchup 4-1 in Sean's favor. You have to like his positioning here going into game 2.
Yeah, the Tailwind is petering out here, but it's now basically a Garchomp versus Garchomp. Andrew put himself in that turn with Rock Slide. It wasn't able to take out the Pelipper, which a little surprising that we saw that the Tapu Lele went down without any protect, trying to protect itself from the double target from Earthquake and Scald. We've got Garchomp on Sean's side going for this Earthquake again. Andrews looks like a Groundium Z here to try and take out Sean's Garchomp. Maybe hoping that he was going to either win a speed tie or be able to outspeed. With that huge amount of damage on Xurkitree, we know that we've seen Xurkitree that are capable of surviving a double target Earthquake from Garchomp, but we don't know how some of these Garchomps are trained. But this might be giving us an indication.
And Pelipper just safely setting up the Tailwind here, allowing just for the speed control, because the right now is ending this turn, allows him to just bring in whichever Pokemon he wants to just threaten the KO on the Garchomp, and that's game. And Sean, important to note here, he brings in the Golduck, which is so he doesn't have to reveal his last mon if he doesn't want to, being able to just pick up, allowing that to be kind of a mystery, so that Andrew can't take that into consideration going into the final game.
Right. And this is a game of trying to collect as much information as possible, as quickly as possible. And so not revealing that fourth Pokemon, going for that Tailwind, which basically gives the same speed boost that Swift Swim would. Put Sean in a position where he was going to do pretty well. The only thing that I think that Sean could have done better there is maybe trying to hide a little bit of information, because it looked like he had Scald there, which I don't know. Do you want to reveal that you've got Scald, or do you want to show that you maybe that'll give Andrew a chance to think that, oh, what if he doesn't have Ice Beam because he's got Scald?
Well, most of the time with the Golduck spread, they always have Protect, normally Hydro Pump for the extra Hydro Vortex, and Ice Beam. So Scald is kind of that flexible move, which means that it might not have the Encore or less popular, something like Disable here. So that can give Andrew a little bit. Other than that, I think Sean played the information game very well. He preserved his last Pokemon. Garchomp really kind of just, after it got in and he set up Tailwind, it kind of just Earthquake spammed the entire game. And that definitely worked out for Sean as he got the clean win. They're jumping into game 2. If I'm Andrew, I really want to maybe prevent that Garchomp from just exerting so much offensive pressure, preserving the Gastrodon a little bit better. I think
maybe even seeing some Tailwind out of the Mandibuzz. Because we could see that the speed control was definitely a problem for Andrew in that game. So it looks like going into game 2 of round 2 here at the Collector's Cash mid-season, we've got Tapu Lele and the Gastrodon. Gastrodon proving that it was a pretty good answer to Golduck, at least, because Golduck switched out immediately game 1. How do you feel about this positioning here?
I like this lead a lot better by Andrew, because if that Tapu Lele has something like Taunt, it can prevent the Tailwind from coming out, preserving the allowing that if Garchomp does switch in, it will exert less offensive pressure. And so this better protects the Gastrodon if he has a move like Taunt, or if he somehow just removes the Pelipper prevent the Pelipper from setting up Tailwind this turn.
And here comes this Ice Beam, giving away the second move on Golduck now. We have a Tailwind coming out from Pelipper, which is going to set up Sean pretty well for the next game, or for the rest of this game, as we saw in the last game. And then Psychium Z, Tapu Lele. I feel like this is kind of a callback to earlier portions of this metagame.
Yeah, it did definitely lose popularity. It was very popular in the early season. Normally, and then after that, we saw, like with Drifblim Lele, we saw a lot of Life Orb. Choice Scarf's been the more popular item as of late, just because it's just deals so much offensive pressure. So we're going, but the Psychidium Z, definitely a very strong choice. And as the Gastrodon goes for Muddy Water here, that's a lot of offense onto that Pelipper.
Yeah, and the rain-boosted Muddy Water gonna help out Andrew here, but we see this Garchomp coming right back out. And in the last game, we saw that the combination of Earthquake and Hurricane was capable of taking out Gastrodon. I almost imagine that it would be able to do similar against Tapu Lele. So, I mean, this might be a good position for Andrew if he's got that Mandibuzz in the back to try and get it out here.
If he's able, yeah, especially if he can prevent the Earthquake from happening. Oh, I like the Protect on Lele this turn. It's kind of scouting out a turn of Tailwind. And allowing Gastrodon to maybe just get off a free attack here.
Yeah, we've seen how much Muddy Water can change games in other tournaments. So, I mean, if Andrew can get that off here, the Hurricane going into Tapu Lele, this is going to give Gastrodon a chance, but he misses it on the Garchomp, so that Muddy Water doesn't reduce accuracy of that Earthquake, but does a good amount of damage to this Pelipper. And as you said, burns out a turn of Trick Room, or not Trick Room, Tailwind, so that Tapu Lele might be able to come back in later if he decides to switch out. But slowing things down a little bit, trying to get a little bit of damage on this Pelipper so that he can stop this Tailwind from dominating this matchup.
And as this, we do see the Garchomp go for another. Gastrodon lives, procs its Super Citrus Berry, and goes all the way back up to 50+%. Pelipper does go for the Hurricane. We'll see if this is enough to take out the Lele. And
it barely survives. That's so fantastic.
And Lele will be able to pick up that knockout onto that Garchomp. And this, I think this game is going to go to Andrew if he connects on the... Oh no, Jetpod goes for the recover here.
Wow, what a great turn from Andrew. Again, we burn out another turn of Tailwind. So we've got one turn left, because I didn't remember seeing it fade here. And so if I'm counting correctly, we've got one more turn left. We've got a Tapu Lele on the field in Sean's side, and a full health Gastrodon.
It was a very brilliant, very important survivals. One was from the Earthquake from the Gastrodon, and one was from the Hurricane on the Tapu Lele. Just being able to survive and pick up the key knockout onto that Garchomp, which was clearly the biggest threat to Andrew's team, at least right now.
So we've got this full power Psychic coming out of Sean's Oh no, that Tapu Lele did so much damage. And it looks like Sean didn't double into that Gastrodon, maybe expecting that he was going to pick up the KO just immediately on Psychic. The Psychic terrain does boost Psychic moves by 50%, and then you've got the same type attack bonus on top of that from Tapu Lele, but not doubling into that Gastrodon allowed Gastrodon to pick up the KO on Pelipper, and so now Sean has a Tapu Lele against the world.
And I think that was just beautifully executed by Andrew in this matchup, as he was able to, he played it a lot safer, I think, this match, positioning himself really well to take those hits and protecting the turns of Tailwind that he needed to stall it out. And that was just so important going into the latter part of the game, as now he's just in a 4-1 advantage. Well, now a 3-1, now that Gastrodon is knocked out. But this Moonblast should be able to potentially pick it up from here.
And now, if Andrew is able to clean everything up, which he is, Andrew's now in a position where he only revealed 2 Pokemon that entire match. That, again, we talked about this at the end of Game 1. Information is key to this game and being able to play in a best-of-3 and further down a tournament. And, I mean, revealing 2 Pokemon, not having Sean's information on how Andrew adjusted, I mean, that's a lot of information lost.
But there also is some for Sean here as well. Sean did learn that his Pelipper does outspeed Andrew's Tapu Lele, so if he potentially can somehow double up into it and pick up the knockout turn 1, that would be huge. If that Garchomp is holding something, we've only seen it Click Earthquake, so it could still be the Ground EMZ variant, but if it was holding something like the Choice Scarf, he could potentially double up into Tapu Lele like turn 1 and pick up that KO. We'll have to see what they go into. With the Gastrodon, the Double Duck lead is definitely less threatening, as the Lele was just able to wipe the most offensive Pokemon from Sean turn 1 with the Psychinium Z. Lead.
And so we need to see an adjustment from Sean, that Andrew has really found that Gastrodon and Tapu Lele lead out helped out against the Double Duck lead. Maybe we'll see something from Sean as far as trying to get a little bit better damage off, maybe focusing a little less on this rain. But going into Game 3, man, I'm excited. This is a pretty good best-of-3 here.
It's just a complete shift of momentum between Sean and Andrew. This will be a wonderful Game 3.
Absolutely.
We see
so
a completely different lead from Sean here with the Tapu Lele and Metagross. As Andrew sticks with the same lead that worked. Why not try it again with the Gastrodon and Tapu Lele here?
Yeah, so this could be a great adjustment from Sean. We've got the Metagross, which gets its Zen Headbutt, which we saw miss in round 1 with John Masters. But it's got Zen Headbutt boosted by the Psychic terrain, and Sean is making sure that he absolutely has that Psychic boost, bringing in his own Tapu Lele. And now Gastrodon might just be kind of, I don't know, a fish in a barrel, as it were, because you've got Tapu Lele and Metagross doing a ton of damage. We've seen Recover, we've seen Muddy Water, and we've seen Substitute, but I don't think we've seen Protect on this Gastrodon yet.
No, and maybe that is the 4th move. It could be. We're very unsure, but I really think that Sean is in a wonderful spot here. We saw how much damage that Psychic did to the Tapu Lele. The Metagross threatens the Lele remarkably as well. And we do see that Zen Headbutt. We'll see if this is able to pick up the knockout onto the Gastrodon. As Gastrodon lives on.
Wow. That is an impressively trained Gastrodon, showing that bulk. And then Muddy Water. Andrew has been firing off these Muddy Waters left and right, trying to get some sort of drop. He gets it on Tapu Lele. Metagross, of course, usually with Clear Body, not going to have a drop accuracy there. Very unlikely that he would be running anything else but Clear Body.
No, it's definitely one of the more I think it's the ability on Metagross because of the lack of, you can't get intimidated. But while that turn was very safe from Andrew, I don't know if it necessarily gained him a whole lot. If he has something like the Mandibuzz here that he could switch in and take a Zen Headbutt, that would be huge.
Yeah. And Tapu Lele here, actually both Pokemon on Andrew's side are quite a bit threatened by this Metagross, because we've seen the Zen Headbutt boosted by the Psychic Terrain, but it also has access to Steel moves, which would be super effective against the Fairy type of Tapu Lele. And Xurkitree here barely hanging on to that Moonblast, and we see the Life Orb recoil again from Tapu Lele, which explains why we've got so much damage on this Xurkitree.
And Xurkitree proccing its Citrus, as we do see the Metagross go out and pick up the KO on the Gastrodon. So if Sean has something like the Double Ducks we saw earlier in the back, this could be very scary for Andrew. We're gonna see what Andrew decides to bring in. It is that Garchomp. That's really was a very important Pokemon, I think, to bring in here.
Absolutely. With Tapu Lele here, we're seeing a threat to Garchomp with that Moonblast, but Xurkitree can maybe help out that Garchomp a little bit. We have seen the Ground EMZ from Garchomp, so he could just target straight into that Tapu Lele and clear it out as a threat. But now we see that Xurkitree dealing a huge amount of damage with that Thunderbolt. Oh no, poor Garchomp, going straight down to that Moonblast.
That's just that's an information game. We didn't Andrew didn't know how fast the Lele was, and thought I'm sure he thought his Garchomp was going to outspeed. So that'll be this is a very uphill battle now for Andrew, as I think this just might be it with the Metagross and Tapu Lele on the field against his own Tapu Lele.
Yeah, and that's, again, we've been talking about how much information is important here, and that's just another one of those points where not having all the information, not knowing exactly what your opponent is bringing, can change up the game quite a bit. And Sean playing it smart for an endgame. He does reveal a little bit more information that his Tapu Lele has Taunt, but it also seals up the endgame and makes it a little bit faster. Metagross continuing to go for these Zen Headbutts.
If Andrew and Sean, I guess, play again later in the day, that's something that Andrew can potentially not take note of. That it only makes sense for the Metagross to go for the Meteor Mash there, unless Sean is, of course, preserving info. And with how much damage that did to the Tapu Lele being a resist, that could signify that the Metagross is in fact the Choice Band.
Yeah, I mean, Choice Band plus the same type attack bonus plus the Psychic Terrain is a lot of damage, and that's why some players opt for it. But it looks like Sean clearing it up with, again, a huge swing of momentum throughout this entire round, which is fantastic to watch.
Oh, we saw a complete change. Game 1 was just kind of a Garchomp sweep by Sean. Going into Game 2 with, I think it was the 4-0 by Andrew in return. And then Game 3, it was another just heavily one-sided match. Just a complete adjustment by Sean, as he fully countered almost Andrew's Game 2 lead, and just put himself in such a great position.
All right, so, well, that'll do it for us in round 2. Mr. Matt Jackson, thank you so much for joining me. Anything that you would like to say here at the tail end?
No, we're just excited to be able to stream more matches. We have a couple more rounds, and then we'll be ready for Top Cut. We'll see you guys soon. Hold on tight.